Hi guys, it's James here from the Universal Man team, and what you're about to listen to is a talk from Mark all about meditations for the spiritual warrior. Essentially, Mark has taken the mythological domain of gods and demons and angels and all of this good juicy stuff, and he's condensed it down into how you can get in touch with that in your own mind, to live out your own myth, perhaps as a way of motivating yourself to actually go and quit porn properly. And this is just a little sample of the kinds of exclusive content that you can expect weekly if you join up at the Universal Man Vanguard. And along with 200 plus of these talks, you also get a private forum, a chat room, weekly mentoring calls, and a bi-monthly Q&A. So without any further ado, I hope you guys enjoy.
What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about what I guess I would call a meditation for the spiritual warrior. And a little background for this one might be beneficial to you guys. If you've ever seen me or seen my talks about the spiritual warfare mentality, this is not necessarily a religious mentality, though it can be one. The core premise is the idea that, like, you're better off treating the world as if it was a place populated by angels and demons than not, even if that's not the case. All right, because what it does is it allows you to anthropomorphize your problems. You know, it's like, instead of having this self-deception or rationalization just be a thought, you can view it as a demon, and that gives your brain a bit more of a handhold to really grasp and use for motivation. Because it's like, you see that demon and you treat it like a demon and you reject it and its lies and that sort of thing. And you recognize, oh wow, the thing actually wants to destroy me, because lies absolutely will destroy you, especially the kind that are, addictive and whatnot. Well, then it gives you a much more powerful mindset for fighting these kinds of things and rejecting them. And then, likewise, you can see good stuff as in terms of angels and things like that, whatever. But I think it's a powerful mentality, and people have used it for thousands and thousands of years for modifying their behavior. That's what religions have used, really, is this spiritual warfare mentality, that there's these forces of good and evil, and we can see things as falling, under the guise of one or the other, and we got to try and align ourselves with the good and reject the bad, right? So what I've come up with here is a bit of a meditation that you can do daily or just as needed to help you utilize this perspective. And so the first part of it would be to connect with your dignity. And your dignity is the part that you define as the unconditionally good part of yourself, the part that is separate from your status, right? So we could say that we've got, imagine a super powerful and successful CEO, and then we've got, a drug addict hobo, okay? One is clearly higher status. That would be the CEO, right? And we can say that there's value to that status, absolutely. But I'm hoping, based upon you being here, I hope you share the value that both of them are both equally as valuable as people. They both share the same human dignity. Now, maybe one of them honors their dignity more than the other, but they both have the same human dignity. And that's kind of, what most big religions say. And that's also what, at least in the West, a lot of our laws are built around. Even if you're a terrible, horrible person, you still have a right to trial, and you still have other basic human rights and that sort of thing. And so it works better like that. And if you follow Jordan Peterson, then, he talks about this a lot. So the first thing we got to do in this meditation is connect to this part of ourselves that we define as our dignified part, our essence, in another word. It's like the part that is intrinsically good. You can think of it as your divine spark, or you can just think of it as, a mental abstraction, but whatever, it's a good mental abstraction. So here's how you do it. The first part of this meditation is you just kind of connect with whatever is on your mind. Usually there's some kind of worry, some kind of stress, some kind of aspiration, some kind of desire. And what you do is you tell yourself that you're not any better or any worse if you get that thing or don't get that thing. So, for example, for me, a lot of times, I'm preoccupied with my work. I would go through like, hey, you're not any better or any worse if you get this video done. You're also not any better or any worse if the video is good or not. It's like sometimes I'll even, since I'm constantly analyzing myself as I do things to see if I can learn something, it's like a lot of times I'll have to be like, you're not any better or any worse if you do this meditation properly or you figure something out here. And what you're doing here is you're tapping into the idea that regardless of how you perform and what you get, that you still have inherent perfect value. I would argue God-given value. Okay. And you can take this across all the spectrums. Like, you're not any better or any worse if you quit porn. You're not better or any worse if you have a lot of sex. You're not any better or any worse, no matter how big your dick is or, wherever you want to take it. This is a powerful, powerful thing. And you go through it and you really think about it and you tell yourself this for anything that could be on your mind until you get to the point where you feel a very unique sense of calm. If you do this right, it'll enter you into a very calm place where it's like you're more of a state of being rather than a state of doing. That's the only way I can describe it. And maybe some of you, if you try this out, you can let me know what you think in the comments below. But so after you do that, you move into the next stage, which you can do for as long as you like. And that's basically just you sit in this dignity. You just connect with yourself. And sometimes you're going to find pain in there. You're going to find frustration. Sometimes you're just going to find a nice warm glow. But the reality is you tell yourself, regardless of what you're feeling, you're not any better, you're not any worse, and you're just being present with it. You're being present with what's there. And you're being present with the fact that you're worth it. And it's kind of just relax your brain a little bit. And then at this point, you're pretty well connected to your goodness, I would say. You're pretty well connected to your dignity. And on its own, you might be thinking, they might even have some resistance to doing this because you're like, well, if I do this, then I'm not going to want to change anything. If I'm good regardless of X, Y, Z, well, then why would I seek to change X, Y, Z? And the reason is because if you really identify yourself as good, then you're going to want to be good, and you're going to want to reflect that goodness as, that is what would be natural. Right? I do this example a lot with clients when I'm explaining dignity and motivation and stuff. It's like, if you decide that your inherent nature is that of goodness, well, then it's kind of like you have to be in alignment with that. In the same way that, like, my finger only bends forward. Okay. If I start bending it backwards, it's going to start hurting. Okay. And that's because the nature of my finger is such that it bends forward, but not backwards. If I go against the nature of my finger, it will start to hurt. The same thing goes with your essence, with your dignity. If you start to behave in a way in opposition to your goodness, it's going to hurt, right? So you're connecting with that part of yourself, but then we need to really start plugging it into the world, plugging it into the stuff that you're going to do, right? And so this is where I would say that you start to sharpen your dignity. And what you do in this phase of the meditation is you start first by developing your vision. And a lot of times it can just be your vision for the day, or even just your attitude for the day. You can do it before a specific activity. Like sometimes I'll do it before creating content, or I'll do it before, like when I'm driving somewhere and I'm about to, either interact with friends or family or whatever. I'll do it like this, and I'll create a vision. Some kind of either, it can be very specific or it can be more broad, but you're creating some kind of intention for how you want to show up that is in alignment with your goodness. So, if I'm doing content, it'll be a vision of high impact, of me delivering value, of you guys changing, of me displaying the kind of energy that I want to model. If I'm going to go hang out with friends, then it'll be me trying to be connected, present, compassionate, but, no pushover, whatever. And so I build that up, the vision, and then you just align your emotions. And the way that I do that is first I go through the negative emotions. So if I set my vision, well, then what do I want my negative emotions to be aligned with? Well, I want to have fear toward, screwing that up. I want to have fear toward doing things that are in opposition to my vision, right? Like if you're trying to quit porn, well, then you should cultivate a reasonable, a sensible sense of fear toward relapse, a sense of anxiety toward that sort of thing. You should cultivate an anger toward the lies, toward the deception, toward the self-rejection, toward the, self-sabotage, that kind of stuff. All right. So get your negative energy pointing at negative things. And it just requires you to think about it, requires you to talk to yourself about it. You know, you can see these things as demons, right? This is where the spiritual warfare stuff comes in, is you can imagine, all right, what are the demons that are going to get in the way of your vision? And align negative energy toward them. That's what you want. You want negative energy toward demons, not positive energy. If you have positive energy toward demons, well, then you're going to fall into a trap. Like that's what, you know, all the 7 deadly sins are. They're all just, you know, demons of deception. They trick you into applying a positive emotion to a bad thing, right? Like, so sloth would be applying a positive emotion to destructive laziness, right? Gluttony would be applying a positive emotion to painful self-indulgence or self-destructive self-indulgence, right? And so on and so forth. So we just got to unflip that. Negative emotions toward negative things. And obviously you don't want to be all negative, so then we got to do the positive side as well. We got to connect our hope, our joy, our attraction, our, you know, affirmation, all these kinds of things to the stuff that we think is good. So like, you know, it would be populating your brain with, you know, hope for a good outcome, you know, compassion for the people you're about to see or work for, or, you know, an anticipation for the satisfaction of a job well done and imagining that. And what I found is that if you do the dignity piece first and you connect with your kind of core, and then you line up your emotions, negative to the bad, positive to the good, then, I mean, you're kind of as good as you're going to get. And if you make this a habit, something you do regularly, well, then this really, really helps disrupt any sort of negative patterns, any sort of unconscious patterns of self-deception, of self-rejection, of self-sabotage. All these kinds of things get caught and removed in doing something like this. And it's almost like this is what I would consider to be a strong form of psychological hygiene. And, you know, I encourage you guys to give it a shot. Hopefully it's clear enough. So to recap, it's you connect to your dignity by saying you're not any better or any worse for any kind of thing that you're concerned with. And you walk through all those things until you're calm. And then you just kind of sit with whatever's there inside your heart, you know, and you accept it and you embrace it. And this is you being present with yourself. This is you, even if it's painful, this is you being in a state of self-love, self-embrace. And you do that until you're ready to start focusing, start sharpening this. It's like you've plugged into your power source, and now you're going to start directing it. And basically you direct your fire and brimstone at demons, and then you direct your servitude, your worship toward the things you define as good, as aligned with your highest conception of goodness. So you do that, good things are going to happen, I can pretty much guarantee. So give it a shot. Let me know what you think, because I think that's pretty powerful. Play big. I'll see you in the next one.